This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. As always, top of the show, let me just remind you, we'd love to have you join us here. I'll be back in a couple hours, 2.5 or so, with OTB Live. And if you'd like to play along in the afternoon, grab yourself an account. Go to capitalotb.com or capitalotbbet.com. There's a join or a sign-up link. You click there, you fill out all your appropriate information, and take advantage of the sign-up bonus. If you deposit $50 or $100 for your initial deposit, and then double that amount as you bet. Once you pass that double the amount in your betting, Capital OTB refunds the initial deposit. So you get some free money to play with here, as I say, along with us in the afternoon. I've said it for the last couple of weeks. If you are a sports bettor or you like the blackjack tables or poker at the casinos, those options aren't available, but maybe you've been watching us over the past couple of months and thinking, I'd like to jump in and join them. You can do it very easily. Sign up at capitalotb.com or capitalotbbet.com. Play on your cell phone, your tablet, your computer. The interfaces are very easy to use. You can also use the old school version. There is a touch tone option available as well. If you'd like to try that, happy to have you call up. And again, you get a little menu and you can play that way as well. So again, keep that in mind. We would love to have you playing along with us, and that's the option. And don't forget, we are now less than a week away from race number 1, the 2020 Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes, a week from yesterday. And so you'll want to have your account up and ready to roll for the Belmont Stakes, a really nice stakes card next weekend in New York. So sign up now. Sign up today and get your account funded and ready to go for next Saturday. Do want to also alert you that there are some branches open right now with a limited, restricted in-out kind of a situation currently. As things change, we'll change with that. But right now, we're open with social distancing, wear a mask. You can come in, you can pre-bet the day, you can fund your account, you can cash tickets. But the Clubhouse Racebook is open, as well as the Latham Branch, Woodlawn, and Columbia Turnpike. Again, they are open. Clubhouse Racebook Wednesday through Sunday from 11 to 7 p.m. and the branches Thursday through Sunday from noon until 7. So again, Clubhouse, Latham, Woodlawn, and Columbia Turnpike currently. Also, some of our easy bets are open. You can jump on board and do the same situation there, kind of in-out with pre-bets and funding and whatnot. Loopy's Pub, Partners Pub, O'Toole's, Lakeview Inn, Sampson's, Mijos, Canastota Highway, Hoosiers, Lewis Tavern, Ogdensburg Bowl, and St. Charles as well. Stop in and do your OTB business and maybe pick up a little chow as well. Help them out because most of these places serve a little food as well, so you can help them out during this period as they're waiting to get customers also. So again, various ways to join the fun here on Capital OTB TV, and the fun is even more fun when you can cash a few tickets. That's what it's all about. And as I say, we'll be back in a couple hours trying to do that later on this afternoon. This morning, however, going to do a little stakes recap. Going to take a look at a couple of horses also that maybe you might have missed who will be potentially Belmont Stakes contenders. So we'll do all that in the first segment, little handicapping in segment 2. Segment 3, we'll be joined by our friend Gary West from Lone Star Park. Lone Star today has a nice Texas Champions Day stakes-laden card. So I thought we would get some ideas on that from Gary, as well as Gary is an astute watcher of the 3-year-old scene when ESPN had their 3-year-old poll, their weekly 3-year-old poll. I participated in that, but the guy who was kind of the major domo of all that was Gary West. So he pays attention certainly to 3-year-olds and get some opinions from him. A little early opinion on next week's Belmont Stakes. Speaking of which, I just pulled up, when I got in this morning, there was a workout. We talked to Jack Knowlton yesterday with Tiz the Law. Tiz the Law was on the track and had a workout this morning. It was not anything more than a nice little gallop around. I'm just looking here. Opening quarter 26 and change, final quarter 23 and change. Galloped out 5 furlongs in 103 plus, 6 furlongs in 116. Barkley Tagg said, I just wanted to get a little something into him. That was all. He's had plenty of training. So it seems like he is coming in good form. And as Dave Grenig said in the article, the presumptive favorite for the Belmont Stakes next week. And again, we talked with Jack Knowlton yesterday, and clearly they are excited and should be after, 2003, a small partnership gets the Derby with Funny Side, and now 17 years later, here they come back with another very nice New York bred with Tiz the Law looking to start off the road to the Triple Crown next Saturday at Belmont. All right, stakes, typically we'll look at some stakes from Saturday, but I wanted to go back because there was one last Sunday afternoon worth looking at, and of course we were in on Sunday morning, so we didn't get a chance to look at the Sunday afternoon stake. But last Sunday out at Santa Anita, the Triple Bend, a couple $100,000, grade 2, 7 furlongs. Want to show this because McKinsey was in the field of 5, went off as the 1-2 favorite. McKinsey's going to be the number 5 horse here. Mike Smith on board, gets it done. Had been over in Saudi Arabia earlier this year for that rich race over there, the Saudi Cup. Finished 11th in that field, so a little bit of a disappointment, but on the return to America, gets it done here. Chart margin a length and a half in the Triple Bend. McKinsey is a funny horse. He's one of those horses, you look and you say, he kind of hasn't lived up to what we've expected of him when you look at the PPs. But then you look overall, 8 wins in 16 starts after last weekend. Well over $3 million in the bank. He's had wins like last year's Whitney right up here at Saratoga. So nice grade 1 winner. As I say, over $3 million in the bank. He's won half of his starts. So it's a pretty good career, but you still look and it's just, he's one of those horses where, finished second in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, second in the Awesome again behind Mongolian Groom. So there have been a few disappointments, but overall, clearly a very, very talented horse. And as I say, when you look at the broader picture, you look down the PPs and there's some seconds there and you think, geez, he seems better than that record. But then you look at the record overall. Anybody would want the 8-time winner of well over $3 million. But now win number 1 in 2020 for McKinsey. We'll see where he goes from here for the Bob Baffert barn. But again, got back on track for this season after, as I say, a little bit of a dud over in Saudi Arabia. All right, let's go to some stakes from yesterday because there were some good ones. And one of those was the Ogden Phipps, which it was a small field, a field of only 6, but it was a select field. Ollie's Candy was coming out a close-up second behind Cece in the Apple Blossom. Point of Honor finished 3rd in that race after a very poor start. The 3rd place finish in the Apple Blossom was good. We looked at that yesterday and talked about it with trainer George Weaver on Racing Across America. So they were both live in here. Blamed had some early speed. And we had talked to Ellis Starr yesterday and handicapped the race, and he thought Blamed might take him all the way around. And that's kind of what it looked like for a while. Blamed was out there. Ollie's Candy was sitting in a stalking position. Blame's the number 4 horse. Ollie's Candy is going to be the number 5. I put Ollie's Candy on top, and right about here, Ollie's Candy goes by Blame, and you thought, you know what, Ollie's Candy looks in a good spot. But coming was number 2, Point of Honor, and number 3, She's a Julie, who is a very nice stakes quality runner, stakes winner for Steve Asmussen. I didn't use She's a Julie off the last couple of starts, but she was talented enough to be between horses, and she's going to gut it out. And Point of Honor makes another run there right at the wire to run a very good second. Margin, nose, and a neck. Nose from first to second, neck from second to third. I thought it was a good performance by all 3 of those runners in there. She's a Julie wins, Point of Honor runs second, Ollie's Candy runs third. But as I say, they were all right there. And players now in this filly and mare division going forward, certainly, as they were before. But this just emphasized their setup, you would think, for a good season off a nice, again, small but a salty field, and the contenders put on a show. The contenders being Ollie's Candy and Point of Honor. She's a Julie, as I say, I shied away, the better shied away. She was the longest price on the board at 14-1. And it kind of tossed a couple of duds in it. Churchill had run a well-beaten 6th in the prior start, a stake there at the end of May. But she was a talented, again, stakes quality runner for Steve Asmussen, and stamps herself also now as a player in that filly and mare division, whereas whereas Point of Honor and Ollie's Candy coming out of the Apple Blossom were already kind of in the mix off of the good performance down there for both of them. But She's a Julie now in that mix as well. And again, another one of those situations where it'll be interesting to watch where they go. But there are some options if they want to come up the North Way in a month or so and take a shot at Saratoga. We'll see if that's going to work out. All right, let's move on to the Louisville down at Churchill Downs, Grade 3 event, 1.5 miles on the grass. I liked Arklow. I've always liked Arklow, so I was jumping back on board him. Tis the Slam was interesting to me. I put that one underneath, and then I had Admission Office in the 3rd spot. But as they come down to the wire, after 1.5 miles, you see a ding-dong battle like this. Admission Office will be number 12. Arklow will be number 5. He's No Lemon is the number 4 horse, runs 3rd. Tis a Slam was up there at the number 6 horse, but got passed late. But boy, you see Admission Office on the outside. And Arklow just seemed to hesitate when it was kind of tight down on the rail. Had to go between the hedge and a horse, and he was making a nice move, and he seemed to hesitate. And either he got brave or Florent Giraud just kind of said, let's go. And it took him a few strides to kind of work out, okay, I'm gonna pass this horse on the inside. Once he got it going, and you can see here, he's kind of on the hedge there, and he's making his move, and then flattens out a little bit, and he's not making as much progress. And then it gets, steps on the gas pedal and gets going. But that little hesitation, I think, may have cost him the race. Good win by Admission Office, but you see Arklow coming, just can't get to the winner as the winner got the head start. But Brian Lynch, Admission Office, get it done. Arklow running 2nd in there. Again, good performance by both of them. Hey, Sword Dancer's sitting up here, right, at Saratoga? So we will see. That Saratoga options abound for any of these divisions, you would think, and we'll see who comes and who zigs and who zags, as it were. But we'll keep our fingers crossed for, again, a solid Saratoga Stakes season. Whether we're on track or not, we want to watch some good racing up there. All right, and I wanted to show a couple of the 2 stakes from Woodbine because we talked about those yesterday with Ellis Starr. And again, these will play into some of the stakes going forward up at Woodbine, you think, or beyond potentially. The Woodstock is potentially interesting for News to Me. It'll be fun to see where Mike Trombetta goes with this one. Ellis Starr like News to Me. We both like Clayton. Clayton, coming off the career debut win, looked intriguing in that stake yesterday, the Woodstock. But he scratched. He was cross-entered. Watch for Clayton this afternoon. He's cross-entered in a race today up at Woodbine, but he will be one to watch. And he's Queen's Plate potential, being an Ontario bred. But with that one scratched, Ellis said, with that potential, take a look at News to Me coming up from Fairhill for Mike Trombetta. Marie Trombetta, I assume his wife. So keeping it all in the family. News to Me, who had shown some ability as a 2-year-old last year, won a stake on the synthetic at Presque Isle. Tried the synthetic in his last race at Turfway, the Animal Kingdom. Didn't look so good that day, but had been working steadily over at Fairhill on the synthetic. They ship him up to Woodbine in the Woodstock yesterday, and News to Me looked very good in here. The favorite was Untitled as a chalky favorite. Untitled is going to run second, but a well-beaten second. News to Me is the number 2 horse, and look at when he gets going here on the outside. He wins. The eventual chart margin is over 5 lengths. This is a nice little win in a 100 grand stakes race for Trombetta with this one. And as I say, he has shown maybe a little bit of an affinity now with the stakes win at Presque Isle and the stakes win up here, a little bit of an affinity for a synthetic surface, although he has tried both turf and dirt in the career. Be fun to see what they do with him. So Trombetta, based down at Fairhill, you expect this one would go back. And from that Fairhill base, you can kind of aim in any direction. But a nice little, will they wind up on the Triple Crown Trail at some point? I don't know. But being based at Fairhill, maybe the Preakness later in the year. But as I say, there are plenty of options. I'm not sure this is that quality, but there are plenty of 3-year-old stakes all over the place that they can go to, particularly if they kind of think, maybe we can take some shots on the turf as well. He might be interesting there. So News to Me, nice win yesterday up at Woodbine. That was for the 3-year-old boys. There was also a stake for the 3-year-old girls, the Star Shoot. Owlette is going to be the winner here. It's a Wesley Ward trainee, Ontario bred. You don't think of Wesley Ward as being based up at Woodbine. And this horse this spring had been working at Keeneland, but had gone up to Woodbine for a nice workout just about a week ago on June 8th, and had clearly already shown an affinity for this surface last year as a 2-year-old, where Owlette had put in 3 wins in 5 starts with a couple of seconds. So hadn't missed an exacta in 5 career starts, with 4 of those being over the Woodbine surface. So Owlette returns to Canada yesterday. The number 2 horse here takes them all the way around as the 2-1 favorite. Curlin's Voyage finishes second, and Coach Laurie third. Curlin's Voyage, another horse that had a nice 2-year-old season last year, and will be one to look forward to. Up in Woodbine, as well, as this one is an Ontario bred, like the winner. So you would think these horses, watching going forward again in the 3-year-old filly stakes up in Canada, as they're both based up there. Both have had plenty of success up there. All right, before we take a break, as I said, I wanted to take also a little look at a couple of races that maybe you missed, but will produce potential Belmont starters. One of those is going back, and this will be interesting to see if Patrick B. and Cohn turns around this quickly. This was the middle of this week, so we're talking about a 10-day turnaround potentially of the Belmont Stakes. But Sol Volante, off this win the other day, does look like a potential competitor in the Belmont. Sol Volante is the number 7. Jesus' Team, number 5. Second, Chivalry third, Ete Indian fourth. A nice little allowance in the middle of the week this week with, as I say, Ete Indian, Chivalry, and Sol Volante. Nice 3-year-old stakes performers, but on the outside, getting past Chivalry, getting past Jesus' Team. Nice late run from Sol Volante to win. The buyer coming out of this race, a solid 95. So again, the question mark is, does Patrick B. and Cohn come back in the 10 days? He said right after the race, they talked to him in the winner's circle. He said, let's see how the horse comes out of the race. And if the horse comes out well, we will certainly look towards New York. But Sol Volante, 4th win in 6 career starts. Prior to this, he had run second in the Tampa Bay Derby behind King Guillermo. He had won the Sam Davis, third in the Mucho Macho Man. He'd won the Pulpit on the grass. So again, this is one they have some options for going forward as well. A couple of grass wins, and now a couple of dirt wins as well. Dirt wins both in one of the dirt wins in a stakes race, the Sam Davis, and one of the turf wins in a stakes race as well. So as I say, a lot of options for Sol Volante, but we'll see, because the first one is potentially the Belmont Stakes. And you would think if he turns around in 10 days, A, the horse did come out of the race well, and B, there's a little level of confidence to, as I say, turn around kind of that quickly. All right, want to look at one more allowance race from the past couple of weeks that, again, you might have missed, but we'll have a potential Belmont starter coming out of it, and that was back on June 4th. Again, just 10 days ago. Tap It to Win gets it done in an allowance event at Belmont for Mark Casse. Tap It to Win here is going to be the number 3 horse, and just take them all the way around as easy as you can do it. John Velasquez on board. And I'm pretty sure I read if this horse does go in the Belmont Stakes, and that's the plan, I think Velasquez is going to stick on board. But this is a pretty nice-looking win. Mark Casse, Live Oak Plantation. This horse started the career showing a little promise, ran second on the turf up at Woodbine, then came down and broke the maiden at Saratoga. Then they got ambitious, went in the Breeders' Futurity and the Street Sense, and wound up a disappointing 10th in both of those races. Subsequently comes back in a state-bred optional claimer down at Gulfstream, wins that pretty nicely, and then follows it up with what you saw there at Belmont, as I say, just about 10 days ago. Chart margin, again, 5 lengths, front end all the way around, so showed an affinity for the Belmont Strip. That was 1 mile and 16th. Coming up on Belmont, another 16th of a mile, but he comes out of that with a 97 buyer, so pretty solid. And again, the presumptive favorite is Tiz the Law, but there are some others in here who are maybe up-and-comers. And again, we're starting the Triple Crown in June, where some of these horses have had the chance to get a little more maturity and maybe be primed for a good kickoff to a second half of the season. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a small, or smaller than we would expect, first leg to the Triple Crown, but I think it's going to be a very interesting field as well. Although, again, Tiz the Law seems to be the standout at this point with some of the defections we've had over the past 10 days or 2 weeks. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will do a little handicapping. And as I say, a little bit later on, Gary West from Lone Star Park will join us. It's Texas Champions Day. Lots of stakes action down at Lone Star, so we'll talk to Gary in a few. But when we come back, a little handicapping look at Sunday afternoon. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Albany County, an incredible destination to live, work, and play, with easy connections to more than a dozen cities from our vibrant modern airport. It's a short trip downtown to a hive of culture and amusement, from world-class shows at the newly renovated Times Union Center to reliving the past at the New York State Museum. From outdoor recreation to shopping to nightlife, Albany County has something for everyone. We'll see you soon.
Hits apart as they move down the backstretch.
And he guides him down to the rail as the field turns for home.
A furlong to the finish.
The incomparable, invincible, unbeatable Cigar! It's too close to call!
He is moving like a tremendous machine.
Wagering on horse racing just got a lot easier at Capital OTB with our newly designed state-of-the-art mobile wagering site. Everything you need is right here on one easy-to-navigate mobile platform. Set your favorite tracks, pick your horses, place your bets, all with a simple tap of the screen. Plus, you'll have access to Capital OTB TV for all our network programming. So log on to CapitalOTBBet.com and see just how easy wagering on horse racing can be.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. And again, thanks for joining us. Nice day yesterday if you were watching OTB Live. Tossed out some ideas that were fruitful. We will see if we can do it again today. We'll be looking at a little Belmont, a little Churchill, a little Gulfstream, same scenario as yesterday. Oh, and speaking of Gulfstream, I did want to go back because they had the mandatory payout yesterday in the Rainbow. And they were advertising, they had $1.8 million as a carryover going in yesterday. So they were advertising and expected an estimated $5 million in the pool. Wow, they went by that as they loaded in the gate, as they do on those days that they have the ticker going and did an extended post parade, as it were, and warm up. But as they went in the gate, it was $9.4 million in the pool. So I didn't see exactly what it ended up, but we were verging on $10 million. And they were estimating 5, and Pete Aiello did his scratches and changes at the start of the day, and he said, I'm estimating 6. And there go the estimates. As I say, it was closer to 10 million yesterday. As the day went along, and we were in here doing OTB Live, the first 4 were horses that were very havable, but were going to add some value to the plays. You had an $8 winner, a $14 winner, and a couple of $12 winners in the first 4 legs. And as I say, they were all very playable. The first 3 I had in my mix. The next one I didn't, but it clearly was one you could have had. And so I said, boy, I hope it just keeps kind of playing out like this, and we get a few thousand people who kind of walk away with a couple $1,000 or something. It'll be a good payday. With the double-digit winners in there, it was going to be a good payday, but they were logical, so even the little guys could have walked away with a decent amount of money. Well, subsequently, it was a $36 winner in the 5th leg, which, again, was playable. It wasn't so crazy, but I think you would have had to go deeper for most tickets. There could have been some clever people who maybe singled 1 or 2 of the others, just had a feeling, and he kind of fell into a nice little ticket that did it. But the 36 probably knocked out most of the little guys. So $8, $14, $12, $12, $36, $13, all of those with some change as well. But again, 5 fairly logicals, and then one you had to stab at a little bit. I mean, again, it wasn't one of those where you looked at and you were totally mystified. But if you tab that right, over $58,000 yesterday. So it was a nice payoff. Again, for a sequence that, for me, the first 4 and the last one were all horses that, depending on how you construct it, and I will say, it's also hard to construct a ticket that has that many of those kind of horses. The $10 to $15 horses that are logical, they're playable, but in your mix they may have been 2nd, 3rd, or 4th in your mix. It's hard to have a ticket with 5 or 4 of those on it. The $8 winner that started things off was very playable. So that one I could see. I may even see somebody starting with that one singling. Not that it was a standout, but if you're trying to put a clever ticket together, possibly. But again, once you talk about, logicals, but they're a little bit down in your mix maybe. Again, it starts to get expensive when you're going. A reasonable ticket, you're hoping you can get a single or maybe a couple of races where you only have to go 2 deep. When you start talking about 3s and 4s deep in a leg and you string a few of those together, it starts to get a little expensive. But again, it was one of those that it was a sequence that wasn't crazy. And the 58 with a $10 million pool, it got spread around. Not as much as I was kind of hoping at the beginning of the day. As I say, I'd like a few thousand people to walk away, a couple thousand to walk away with a few $1,000s. And this was maybe a little more limited, but you wound up with 58,000 plus. So it was for some people, and a decent, again, with $10 million in the pool, a fairly decent group of people walked away with a day they will remember for a while. All right, let's do a little handicapping. First, let me take a look at the feature race today at Belmont, and then maybe we'll take a look at the late pick 4 at Churchill Downs. And I don't know if there were any scratches out. at this point. I did see on Twitter somebody had scratches at Churchill, so I can look at those as we go. But I looked a little while ago. There weren't any from Belmont yet, usually 11 o'clock or so. The Mike Lee is the feature today at Belmont. State breds going 7 furlongs. This used to be the first leg of the old Big Apple series, which had a bonus to it. The 3-year-old, kind of the 3-year-old New York bred Triple Crown. It was the Mike Lee, the New York Derby up at the Finger Lakes and the Albany at Saratoga. And it wouldn't shock me if a lot of the horses still play that game. They just don't have the bonus or the title to the sequence anymore. But the Mike Lee kicks it off for the New York breds. I went 6, 4, 3, and 2. I put Captain Bombastic on top. Jeremiah Engelhardt, trainee. Been down at Oaklawn. Jeremiah had some horses at Oaklawn. And this horse ran a couple of good seconds. Second last time was behind Pneumatic, who is a promising little 3-year-old, potentially in the open rank. So coming off those 2 second-place finishes down at Oaklawn, I like the horses moving from Oaklawn this time of year anyway. So I'll put Captain Bombastic on top. Won a New York bred stakes race last year and only the second start of his career. So let's see if he can rebound and break through again for this season, get his first win in the Mike Lee. Dream Bigger is a very talented stakes-level performer on the New York bred side. Already has a stakes win this year, won the Damon Runyon last time out at the Aqueduct meet just before the break was taken. Has been down at Palm Beach Downs working out, and that's kind of notable. It's a Rapoli Rudy Rodriguez runner, and I would have to assume this one was down essentially with the Pletcher horses potentially, because I don't think Rudy has really a stable down at Palm Beach Downs. That's where Pletcher is, and Rapoli, being a Pletcher customer, probably using the facilities down there, but had a nice workout just the other day down in Florida leading into this. So this horse will be a player as well. And Gandy Dancing, second career start this afternoon for Chad Brown, off a decent little maiden breaker in the career debut in the middle of March. This could be a nice looking New York bred, kind of knocking on the door and saying, let me into these stakes ranks. Again, only one race so far, one win. Pretty good looking win though. It is Chad Brown, so I think Gandy Dancing could be a player as well. But for me, in the Mike Lee, 6, 4, 3, and 2. Take a little look at the Churchill late pick 4 today. And again, we'll be looking at these also live this afternoon on OTB Live. And a couple hours, we'll be back with that. The pick 4 at Churchill this afternoon kicks off in race number 7. And again, somebody posted there are no scratches in the 7th. I have a 3, 2, 4, and 1. Again, Churchill 7th. It's Cold in Dehere, goes out for Tommy Amos off a couple of decent second place finishes down at the fairgrounds February and March. There are some back numbers that are very good. I think the top 3 in here are kind of evenly matched. If I was going to do a pick 4, I'd probably use all of them, and I'd be scared to leave the number 1 off. But if I'm going to pare down the ticket, you definitely use the 3. And again, maybe go 4 deep, depending on what you can do a little bit later. But 3 over the 2, Heaven's Whisper, who came up from Oaklawn last time, ran a decent little second. I think with that one under the belt now, a little experience over the track, was the beaten chalky favorite in that one. I'll give Heaven's Whisper another shot. Excuse me. And Princess Trina in the 3rd spot. Just seems to be in some good form. Was on the turf down at the fairgrounds this winter, and then came up to Churchill last time, a couple of weeks ago. Nice win against 8,000 claimers. So there's a little class move being made here that has to be answered, but it seems like Princess Trina should fit with this bunch. So 3, 2, 4, and 1. And again, I'd use 3 or 4 in there depending on where your ticket goes in that late pick 4. In the 8th race, leg number 2 of the late pick 4, I have an 11, 2, 3, and 1. They're on the turf at 1 1/16. And in the 8th race, and again, this is via Twitter. Somebody tweeted out, double check your scratches, but I'm showing the 1A, 9, and 12. So I'm still good. With Wildlife, Vicky Oliver trainee, 8 to 1. I thought the last race down at Gulfstream may have set this horse up nicely for the comeback to Churchill, where this horse has one win and a couple of starts. The last try at Churchill was on a yielding course in Stakes Company. Didn't show much that day, but the maiden breaker at Churchill was pretty good. So it's shown a little bit of affinity for the course. Comes out of a nice try last time again down at Gulfstream. So I'll put Wildlife on. Actually, I didn't put that one on top. Excuse me. I put that one down at the bottom of the mix. I went with Catch a Bid on top because I kind of juggled up things here. Again, it's one of those where I have various notes, but I debated the one at the 8-1, and then I kind of shifted my attention out, and I wound up on the Chad Brown horse. And the reason I kind of went back and forth on Catch a Bid, at the mile and a 16th out in the outside post position, I wasn't sure. But again, and so I was kind of taking a shot with the 8-1. And then I went back and forth and said, okay, I'll go Catch a Bid on top, Chad Brown and Klarovich. Hasn't been seen since last year, a lightly raced 3-year-old season, and now comes back as a 4-year-old off of one of those layoffs where I often think they can come back improved. So we'll look for Catch a Bid to come back improved and have to make a trip from that outside post. So again, I was juggling these up, and I went with Catch a Bid, and then the more I looked, the more I thought, you know what, if I'm going outside, let me go a little inside with my next two. So I went Magic Star and Mighty Scarlet in the next couple of spots. Magic Star is on the inside for Chad Brown, coming off some stakes tries down in Florida recently, so moving into the non-winners of 2 company should be beneficial. Mighty Scarlet in the 3rd spot on a best effort can do it. And again, Wildlife, who I did like and was originally at the 8-1 going to play around with, I eventually moved down. But I wouldn't argue again. It's just depending on how you can structure your ticket. I wouldn't argue against any of those in there. But I wound up with the two Chad Browns on top when I eventually settled and kind of made my final stand, as it were. I went 11-2, 3-1. 9th race at Churchill, showing, and again, check on the scratches, but what we're showing, somebody tweeted out the 5 and the 12. But I have it 7, 13, 10, and 9, and it looks like maybe the 13 will draw in now. That was first on the AE list. I went high proof. 3rd-time starter for Brad Cox. Couple of nice efforts. Debuted in November at Churchill. And I say nice effort. It was one to build on. The first effort ran 5th, well-beaten 5th. But there were some next-out winners that came out of that. So it was a productive race, and it looked like one to build on. And sure enough, the comeback in the 3-year-old season was a nice win down at Oaklawn last time. Now moves into the Brad Cox barn for the 3rd career start off the nice Oaklawn win. I'll go with high proof on top. Getting in from the AE is well connected. Good win last time down at Gulfstream for Mike Maker. This is one of those horses that was in the Jason Service barn owned by Michael Dubb and Company. Moved into the barn of Mike Maker and got a nice win down there at Gulfstream in the seasonal debut. I think off of that is a player in here as well. And then Toledo in the 3rd spot. It's Chad Brown, Juddmonte, a horse that has shown some talent. I think this is a pretty competitive field for, there's probably 5 or 6 in here that I have some notes on that I could make cases for. But Toledo on a best effort, this will be the 2nd start off a little bit of a layoff from the 1st of February until the middle of May. 2nd start back off a decent little try the beginning of this meet. Good 2nd place finish behind Art Collector. So Toledo looks like a player in here as well. The 9th at Churchill, 7, 13, 10, and 9. And wrapping up the late pick 4 at Churchill today. These are 3-year-old and up maiden specials going 5.5 on the grass. I went 8, 1, 5, and 4. 7 just missed my mix. I'm just looking again. Check the scratches later, but from what I see, the 11 is scratched here, so not affecting me. But I went 8, 1, 5, and 4 with the 8 being Buy Into Mischief. They paid $350,000 at Ocala last year, and this horse just missed in the career debut. And with that Into Mischief breeding, that's a win early all over for me. And as I say, at 15-1, just missed living up to that, sprinting on the turf out at Southern California. Comes to Churchill for John Sadler, but I think should be set up this afternoon. Tyler Gaffleone on board, who is riding very well down at Churchill. I also, as a first outsider, really like Cairo Prince. So Hoof Prince gets my attention there. A career debut that wasn't as good as Duplicity, my top pick, but again, it was one that maybe gave this horse some education to build on. And then Master Ryan in the third spot. Nice improving buyers in all three starts. They were last summer. Now the horse comes back in the 4-year-old debut off a very lightly raced campaign. And again, it's one of those that maybe comes back improved, and if so, could be a player as well. So in the 10th and final at Churchill, 8-1, 5-4. And again, we'll be taking more of a look at these races this afternoon live on OTB Live in a couple hours. All right, we will be joined in just a moment by Gary West from Lone Star Park. Again, it's Texas Champions Day down at Lone Star, so we'll dig into some of the stakes with Gary. Also get some of his thoughts on the Belmont Stakes that comes up next Saturday. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Wagering on horse racing just got a lot easier at Capital OTB with our newly designed state-of-the-art mobile wagering site. Everything you need is right here on one easy-to-navigate mobile platform. Set your favorite tracks, pick your horses, place your bets, all with a simple tap of the screen. Plus, you'll have access to Capital OTB TV for all our network programming. So log on to CapitalOTBBet.com and see just how easy wagering on horse racing can be. No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. As promised before the break, joined now by our friend Gary West. You see him down at the paddock at Lone Star, so I thought we would reach out on Texas Champions Day. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. And you and I were talking a little bit before the break, but I've been asking everybody the past couple of weeks, how'd you make it through quarantine, lockdown, shutdown time? And as I've said to people like you, players, come on, admit it, you played a little fauna, right?
Yes, I did. I played a little everything. I was looking at venues that I don't normally examine, and you know what? It's still great. It's enjoyable, and one of the most marvelous things that I've noticed and watched for many years is no matter what the level of competition, even at a backwater racetrack, and even at the $5,000 level, these horses continue to amaze because they're out there defining themselves. So, you can see a $5,000 claimer the other day, 3 of them hooked up at the 8th pole, and they are giving it everything they have, the cheapest claimers on the racetrack, and they're defining themselves, trying to win and define themselves as winning racehorses. And it's a glorious game.
And I also said to people during that time, I've tipped my cap to Gulfstream Tampa, Oaklawn, Will Rogers, and Fonner for continuing racing. And for folks who were jumping into those mandatory pools out at Fonner and whatnot, I said, because for a while I was doing the handicapping show in here regularly each weekday. And so Mondays and Tuesdays I would have to focus on maybe some tracks I didn't normally. But to me, that helps your handicapping because I think we all kind of get in some comfort zones with the tracks we follow regularly. So if you get to a track you don't normally follow, you're out of your comfort zone a little bit, and you kind of have to go back to the handicapping basics.
I agree. You know, I was doing that with Will Rogers, for example, asking myself, okay, is this a 1 mile oval, or you know, how long a run is it to the turn? And you know, I couldn't take anything for granted, and we probably shouldn't ever. So yeah, I had to go back to basics. You're quite right.
Yeah, I think it helps the handicapping a little bit. All right, Gary, we'll talk a little Texas Champions Day down at Lone Star today. Looking forward to a stakes-laden card. Before we do that, though, as I say, been watching you as I sit in here in the afternoon, and I have a bunch of simulcast signals going on the TVs here in the studio. So for people who maybe aren't normally following Lone Star, give us some of the trainers or jockeys we may want to watch on a daily basis.
Well, of course, you know, this is Steve Asmussen's home, and Steve Asmussen is the perennial leading trainer, although, you know, Carl Broberg has changed that somewhat the last couple of years. But Asmussen, I think, has come here with a barn full of very good horses, and I'm clocking horses in the morning, and I've noticed that his horses, as always, just look terrific, and he's got some babies here. He likes to develop babies here. He's got a few here that I think are runners, a couple of unnamed babies. And by the way, his son, Keith James, is going to make his riding debut Wednesday here at Lone Star. So that's going to be a big day for the Asmussen family. Of course, you know, Cash Asmussen was a great jockey, both in this country and in Europe. And actually, Steve started out as a jockey. And of course, Keith James' grandfather, Keith, his namesake, started out as a jockey as well. So, yeah, the Asmussens are that's the stable that you have to look at first and foremost. But we've seen some new rivals here this year, most prominently Robertino Diodoro, and he was a leading trainer at Oaklawn Park. His horses look great. You know, you mentioned jockeys. Stuart Elliott is terrific, and he's been riding a lot of the Asmussen horses, most of the Asmussen horses, and you know, that veteran know-how really comes through in a lot of these races. I noticed the other day he just sat behind a group of speedsters and cut the corner and got through and won on a horse that probably wasn't the best horse in the race. Stuart Elliott is having a great meet. He's the leading jockey at the moment. Asmussen, the leading trainer, and of course Broberg and Diodoro are right behind. And Calhoun has some good-looking youngsters as well. Brett Calhoun, he is another one who's from Texas. In fact, he was born here and grew up right here in Grand Prairie. And Calhoun likes to develop his youngsters down here as well. We've seen many stables, most prominently Asmussen and Calhoun, debut a 2-year-old here and immediately send him to New York or to Churchill Downs. But they like to start off in their backyards often.
Yeah, and I did read that his kid was going to be riding this week. That'll be fun to watch, certainly. Following the family tradition, as it were. We'll see if he can stick around as long as Cash or has to bail out like Steve did. I mean, you can see Cash, in fact, I think he went to Europe. It was weight that sent him to Europe, right? He could get a few more pounds over there. I don't think that was even an option for Steve, though.
No, it wasn't. And Keith James he's taller than your average rider. I don't think he's going to be a jockey for long. In fact, as I recall, he's going to be going to Baylor very soon. So, and by the way, he looks great on a horse. I've seen him on horses here in the mornings, and he really knows what he's doing, and he looks great on a horse.
Yeah, it'd be fun to watch his debut on Wednesday. Before we get in the races, I also did I read correctly? Lone Star is going to have fans on track?
That's right. Today, for the first time, we're going to have fans here. They haven't publicized it, so I don't know how big a crowd they are expecting. I think they wanted actually to downplay it and keep the crowd small. I think they're limited to 50% capacity, which won't be a problem. And but more than anything, this enables the owners of these horses to come out here. You know, for the last couple of weeks, if you owned a horse at Lone Star and you wanted to watch him run, your best bet was to drive up to Oklahoma, you know, and watch him there. But at least the owners will get to come out today. And I don't know if everything will be open, but there will be some fans here for the first time this season, and maybe we'll get in the swing of things by the end of the summer. But they've revised the schedule, and racing will continue, I believe, into August. And now we have fans.
Yeah, and I think everybody's going to be kind of watching. I want to see either the Louisiana Downs or I think Evangeline. One of those tracks, I think, also has fans. And Delaware this week is going to have fans. So I think you guys, everybody in the racing world, I think will be watching, because I think we all want to know what protocols might work and what might have to be tweaked. And speaking of that, I have not been, I just came back in here in the studio a couple of weeks ago after being in the kind of the shut at home period. So I certainly haven't been on track in one of these situations, but you've been in the paddock. What's it like at a racetrack with no fans?
It is so weird to be down there with no fans, and I probably underestimated how much we all draw from the fans and how much excitement the fans generate. But it's very strange to be down there in the paddock without any fans. It's a lack of vitality. There's a certain blasé atmosphere that is unfamiliar to anybody who goes to a racetrack where there's so much anticipation bubbling up in the paddock. But that hasn't been the case with no fans here, and I think we all miss them.
Yeah, you're missing the guy who's yelling, "Go 5, go 5, go 5."
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, let's jump into it. It is Texas Champions Day down at Lone Star. As I say, a stakes-laden card. Let's jump in and start looking. Race number 5, which kicks off a pick 5 down there today. So let's jump in on the 5th race. It is the Richard King Turf, and I will say, in this one, it looks like a nice field in here, a nice competitive field of 9 scheduled to go, 1 mile and an 1/8 on the grass. What did you see in the 5th race?
Well, I love the race, actually, because 2 horses that are training superbly are in here and squaring off, Sunlit Song and Redatory. Sunlit Song is probably training as well as any horse on the grounds right now. He has been lighting up the racetrack in the mornings. He just looks fantastic. The big question is, can it go 1 mile and an 1/8? He's never raced this far before. He's been successful at 1 mile, but 1 mile and an 1/8, that is pushing him to his limit. But there is absolutely no speed in here, and he has very good speed, and I'm sure he'll go right to the front. There's no speed, so I give him a chance to upset Redatory, who's the favorite and deserves to be. He has been the best Texas bred on the turf the last couple of years, who won this race a year ago. He's coming into this off a victory in the Houston Turf Stakes, and he'll probably be sitting just behind a Sunlit Song early and try to run him down. But those 2 are training great, both of them, and I think they're the 2 most talented horses in the race.
And you mentioned clocking in the morning, and I'll tell people you're one of the guys that whose opinion I really appreciate when you talk about that, because you have said over the years, a lot of people will look at the past performances and see a fast workout or a bullet workout, and you've always said it's more than just how fast they go, it's how they're going. And I look at Sunlit Song, and what also jumps out at me, the last workout, June 2nd, 6 furlongs. And anytime, more these days it's mostly 4 or 5. And anytime you get a little bit of a different kind of a distance in the workout, that kind of stands out to me too.
Right. Mindy Willis recognized that she had to get some air in him to go 1 mile and an 1/8. He hasn't run since February, so she worked him 3/4 of a mile, and boy, he was fantastic. He went 11 and change, galloped out in 24 and change, and as I said, there's probably no horse on the ground training better.
Very good. 6th race at Lone Star today, the Groovy. This one is for the Texas breds, going 6 furlongs. Again, scheduled field of 9 in here. Your thoughts on the Groovy?
Well, there's an abundance of speed in here. Rock the Devil is very fast, although I can't imagine he's going to hang on He'll probably burn out on the front end and probably take some down with him, such as Merrow said ready, a speedster who actually won here last year. He would be an upset possibility if he can stay off the early lead and stalk. Wonders of His Love is another speedster. They're going to set, I think, a blistering pace and just set the race up for Gold Pilot, who has rallied off the pace to win his last two, including the Jim Orbit Stakes. He ran behind Merrow said ready last year here at Lone Star, behind Merrow said ready, and Good Judgment was also in this race. So I see Gold Pilot, the improving 3-year-old who's going to come running and catch the speed, and probably Good Judgment as well can stay just off the early leaders and that be a factor. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls off the upset. And of course, Gold Pilot is trending well. I really like this half-mile workout. I guess it was a week ago Saturday, went 48 and change, and was just totally in hand. It was an impressive move.
Very good. Race number 7 is the Barra Lass. This one again at 6 furlongs, and another field. This one, field of 8 Texas breds. Your thoughts on the 7th race?
Number 3, always in the money. I think it's going to have everything her own way. You know, there's nobody in here that has her kind of early speed, so she'll go right to the lead, I think, and just dominate here. I'll be surprised if that isn't what happens. And once again, this is one that's training well.
Yeah, and last nice little bullet right here at Lone Star had been at Will Rogers Downs prior to that. All right, Gary, let's shift attention a little bit. I said at the top of the show, you are an astute watcher of the 3-year-olds, have been for years. So as we're a week away from the Triple Crown kicking off in 2020, the June, September, October Triple Crown this year, I wanted some thoughts. Before we do that, let's just get some general thoughts. You and I were talking a little bit before we went on the air. Boy, you get in that month before the Derby and everybody's plugged in. And it just seems like, I assume as the week goes along, it'll pick up steam. But it just seems like as we're coming out of this lockdown period, people aren't quite plugged in yet to the Triple Crown getting ready to kick off. And as I was saying to you during the break, I'm kind of surprised the field size, which is anticipated to be, maybe 8. I thought Grade 1, $1 million, an American Classic, and at 1 1/8, if you have a 3-year-old, it's not like the Derby where you're wondering, can I get that distance? If you have a talented 3-year-old, why not try the 1 1/8? I'm surprised they're not knocking down the door to get in the starting gate.
I am too, frankly. I thought there would be a big field here because, as you point out, 1 1/8, if you have a decent 3-year-old, you have to think that's within your reach. The mile quarter is always a big question, and you got a big jackpot here, and you're going to have a short price favorite. I think, don't you? Because the law will be 2 to 1. He'll be a short price favorite, and he hasn't run in 3 months. So, this might be the only chance you ever get to beat him. So, if I had a good 3-year-old, I would be swinging at this. I'm a little surprised what we haven't seen more of them get in line to take on 'Tis the Law. But it's a strange year, isn't it? And I think COVID just took all the spirit out of sports generally, and I think many people, when the Derby was backed up to September, backed off their 3-year-olds, and so when it came up that the Belmont's going to be run in June, as it always is, of course, maybe they were caught by surprise. Is that possible? Maybe they anticipated the Belmont would be moved back to October or something. I don't know. But I'm a little surprised we don't have more horses and a larger cohort here going for the Belmont. But that said, I think it's a very intriguing field because, of course, you have 'Tis the Law, and he is an outstanding horse. Everybody knows that. But then you have these late developers, horses that, let's face it, in May that they wouldn't have been on the radar at all for the Derby. But now they're looking like that they might be big time players. I'm thinking most notably of Dr. Post.
Yeah, and just let me interrupt for a second because I pulled up the replay from his last win. So while you talk about him a little bit, let's show the Unbridled. April 25th, Gulfstream Park. Dr. Post will be the number 3 here. And as you kind of alluded to, you can't go from this Unbridled on April 25th to the first Saturday in May. So this new Triple Crown schedule benefits Dr. Post.
Yeah, it does greatly. And who knows, at the end of the year, he might be saying this is the best 3-year-old in the country. And in the Unbridled, he had a little trouble. He was in traffic, and he just overcomes that and wins with authority and pretty much wins in hand. I was very impressed with his effort, and it was a good clocking for the day. He has every reason to step forward here. So if Tis the Law is not going to find his best shot here, I think Dr. Post has a big chance to upset.
Yeah, I had Jack Knowlton on yesterday from Sackatoga, and so we were watching some replays of him yesterday. And then earlier on the show today, I showed another couple of horses coming out of allowance wins that, again, given the current situation, become interesting in this version of the Triple Crown. Showed the allowance win by Tap It to Win, the Mark Cassidy trainee.
Right.
And then just the other day, Sol Volante down at Gulfstream looked very good. And it's a quick turnaround, but if Patrick Biancone makes the decision to go with Sol Volante, that was a good run the other day for him.
Yeah, I certainly have confidence in Biancone because he's kind of an old school guy. He went all along, won 4 or 3 grade 1s in 3 weeks or something. It was an incredible accomplishment years ago. So I don't question this move, and he is a horse with a lot of talent, and you don't see the pace getting too hot here. You wonder if he can get up without much pace in front of him. On the other hand, according to the numbers I've been making on these horses, there are several in here who have pace figures that are comparable. They're within a length of each other, 4 or 5 of them. So maybe, although there's not a speedster, maybe the pace becomes contentious, and when they eyeball each other, it does heat up a little bit, and Sol Volante can come running. I think he's a very intriguing sort too.
Yeah, as I said, I'm surprised that the field is the size it is, but I think it's going to be intriguing. And again, I think it'll ramp up this week, but I certainly think after we get one Triple Crown race in the can, so to speak, then I think there's a focus, and it'll be fun to kind of anticipate that first Saturday in September. And more importantly, given that it's the first Saturday in September, whoever the winner of the Belmont is has to or likely has to have at least a race in between. So that race becomes important too, potentially the Travers or some of those other 3-year-old races, Haskell or whatnot. So I think it's different, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
I agree entirely. And I know that's why Tis the Law, for example, is going in here off a 3-month layoff because they're looking down the road at the Derby and the Travers, and they want to make all these races. So let's take a cautious approach, and that's fine and that's wise, I'm sure. And I have the greatest confidence in Barker Tagg to get this horse ready. Still, we're talking about a horse that hasn't run in 3 months, and I think it's a good time to take a shot at him.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A week away. But today, it's Texas Champions Day down at Lone Star. And again, Gary, I've enjoyed watching you in the paddock since the meet began down there on the simulcast signal. Like the commentary down there. I will be interested to hear what the fan situation next week. I'll be interested to hear what the fan situation is like on Derby Day down there. That'll be interesting as well. But we appreciate the conversation today, and we'll talk again.
Anytime, Seth. Thank you.
Gary West, again, from Lone Star on Texas Champions Day this afternoon. Nice stakes-laden card down there. All right, I'm going to wrap things up. Do want to remind you, again, because our friends at Saratoga Harness announced the other day, they're kicking off on Thursday. So keep that in mind. For the harness fans out there, even if you aren't a harness fan, on Thursday, play a little harness just to welcome Saratoga Harness back into the mix after having had to be on the sidelines for a couple of months now. But Saratoga Harness back in on Thursday. Of course, we'll have them here on the network as well. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this Sunday edition of Racing Across America. Thanks to Gary West. Hopefully we gave you a few ideas as far as the handicapping segment. But don't forget, be back in an hour and a half or so for OTB Live on a Sunday afternoon. We'll be looking and punching live at the tracks this afternoon, Little Churchill, Gulfstream, and Belmont Park, and more. So we invite you to tune in for that. We appreciate your tuning in this morning for Racing Across America. And again, we'll see you in an hour and a half or so.
Watching Capital OTB TV. Wager at CapitalOTBBet.com for the most comprehensive wagering site and the best player rewards in New York State.